Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and in today's video, I'm doing an entire preview from top to bottom of the Western Conference in the NBA for this upcoming season. There's a ton of interesting teams to take a look at here, from the Lakers all the way at the top to some really interesting young teams at the bottom. The playoff race is going to be crazy this year in the West. There's a ton of talented teams, and I'm going to go through every single team in terms of who I don't think is going to make the playoffs all the way up into who I think is going to make the conference finals. But really quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every day. It is a great place for consistent NBA content. You can also leave a like rating on the video as well. Helps me out a ton, lets me know that you're enjoying the content, and helps get the videos out to more people on YouTube as well. And you can also hang out with me at various socials at the bottom of the screen in a link tree down in the description below. And I'll be doing the Eastern Conference side of the season preview series later on today. So check that out for the second video of the day. Right now we're doing the West. Later on we're doing the East. From the bottom to the top, we're going to start with a handful of teams that I'm going to cover quickly that I do not currently have in the top 10 in the Western Conference. Because of that play-in situation, you've got top 8, then I'm including 9 or 10 and teams that are kind of lurking on the outside looking in of that playoff picture, and then I've got everybody else. In this scenario, I've got the Oklahoma City Thunder out of the playoffs. They just don't have the talent. They're not trying to make the playoffs clearly. They're trying to develop their young talent. Hopefully Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has a good season, and they go from there. For me, it's not even a conversation about having Oklahoma City in the playoffs. Next up, the Kings. They're a talented team. De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley, other pieces on this roster. If Marvin Bagley's healthy and Buddy Hield has a really good season and actually stays there, or they get good pieces in exchange, I could see them maybe threatening to make the playoffs. But for me right now, it looks more likely that Luke Walton's going to get fired. They're going to be a bit of a disappointment. And just hopefully the best case scenario is Fox has a really good year and Bagley's healthy and we kind of figure out what he is, but I don't have them in the playoffs right now. Next up, the New Orleans Pelicans. I could come back to regret this one because they do have some nice pieces on the roster, even though they did move someone like Jrue Holiday. Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams are still starting caliber players. Brandon Ingram was awesome last year. And then Zion, of course, is the wild card here. And they could be a playoff team if Zion is really, really good. I'm not counting on that health right now, though. I still think that the Pelicans are a year away. I don't have them in the postseason. Next up, the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't have them in either. I don't think they have the defense. I don't think they have the versatility or the wing depth. They're going to be able to score the ball a ton, but I don't think that they are going to have just enough proven NBA players on the wings that they're going to need to get them throughout this entire season. Last up now in the non-playoff category is the San Antonio Spurs. There is talent on this roster in LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan, but for me personally, I don't see this as a playoff team this season. They just not as talented as the other teams in the West. There are a lot of really, really good teams, so I have them on the outside of the playoff picture. Now, at number 10 here is a team that I really like, but the only reason they're not in the playoffs this year for me is because the West is so tough, and it's the Memphis Grizzlies. Jaren Jackson Jr. and John Morant are one of my favorite duos in the entire league. Justice Winslow could potentially be something for them this year. Dylan Brooks is okay. Brandon Clark is good. And they were nearly a playoff team last year. But the West got better at certain spots, and there's just 9 teams that I like ahead of them right now. And again, kind of like the Pelicans, I think they're a team of the future in the West, but I think they're still a year away, and they're going to be relying a bit too much on young players for me personally. So I have them just outside of the playoff picture at the 10th spot. At number 9, this one could change dramatically any day now, and it's the Houston Rockets. I have them outside of the playoffs right now just because I have no idea what's going to happen with this roster. I don't know how much James Harden is going to play. I don't know if he's going to be traded. I don't know what they're going to get in exchange for him. I don't know how good John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins are going to be. Right now, I'm assuming Harden is going to be traded, more likely for some younger pieces, and in a very tough Western Conference with that much upheaval and change to the roster, I have them on the outside looking in. Now, if Harden decides to commit to the team, they're a playoff team. If they get really, really good immediate pieces, they're probably a playoff team, but for right now, I have them on the outside looking in. At the 8th spot now, I do have the Phoenix Suns. This is a team that made a push to get into the postseason after a really strong run in the bubble last year. They bring in Chris Paul. They've got Devin Booker. DeAndre Ayton should step up and be better this year. They've got options on the wings and at the 4 spot. Plenty of depth, plenty of versatility. As long as Chris Paul is healthy, they're going to be a playoff team in my opinion. Now, they're still counting on a lot of young players, guys like Devin Booker, guys like DeAndre Ayton that are very, very good players, are very talented in the case of Ayton. But there's still the possibility that they just aren't playoff caliber players or players that drive winning. That is definitely a possibility, but I think they're too talented. As long as Paul is healthy, they're going to be a playoff team at that 8th seed. Next up, a team that I really like. I like what they did in the offseason, but this just shows you the strength of the West this year, and it is the Portland Trailblazers. They brought in Robert Covington. Carmelo Anthony is coming back. They've got some depth on the wings and in the front court. Guys like Harry Giles were brought in, Derrick Jones Jr. They addressed a lot of the issues with this roster that they've had in the past couple of years, and I do think they've gotten significantly better. However, I just don't think that they have, the all-around pieces that they need in comparison to some of the other teams in front of them. They're still going to be really good, and they could still be a threat to get to the second round and maybe even the conference finals, depending on health and things like that. But just based off their roster on paper right now, I don't have them going any higher than 7. Next up, the Utah Jazz. I have it number 6. They're another team that's kind of hard to get a read on. You don't really know how happy everybody is with the Gobert, Donovan Mitchell situation. Mike Conley was not good last year at all. They've got good pieces, and they should definitely be a good team. And the difference between like the 3 and the 7 spot in the West probably won't be that many games. So it's not that big of a deal if you're the 6 or the 3. It really doesn't matter. But if I do have to rank them, I have Utah at number 6, just because I feel like there's a little bit of upheaval. Maybe they've been the same team for too many years in a row. Conley wasn't good. I don't know. I'm just a little bit uncertain about Utah, so I have them at number 6. Next up, number 5, the Golden State Warriors. I'm pretty high on the Warriors compared to a lot of other people, especially now without Klay Thompson. I believe in the offense. I believe in Steph as, an all-NBA caliber player returning again. I believe in the championship pedigree that group brings to the table, and the possibility that they can make a move at any point, whether that's with Wiseman and that Minnesota pick plus Wiggins, or just Wiggins and the pick. They can always bring in more pieces. They have that opportunity, and as long as Wiseman is good to pretty good as a rookie, I think they're going to be a playoff team and a borderline threat to do some things, maybe make the conference finals once we get to the postseason. And that's just because of the belief that I have in them as an organization, their trade assets, and Steph Curry and Draymond Green as well. Next up now at number 4, maybe a bit of a surprise for some people, I have the Denver Nuggets. I made a video about them potentially sliding back this year a little bit after losing some of their wing depth, some of their guys in the front court, Jeremy Grant, players like that. And this just has to do with the fact that they're going to be relying on a lot of younger players to step up this year, most notably Michael Porter Jr. And I think he's going to do a good job, and he's going to step up, but they just don't have the defensive wings that I think that they're going to need, specifically once we get to the postseason. But I think that's going to cause their regular season record to slide back a little bit as well. They're still going to be a really good offensive team and still a very good team that is a true threat to make the conference finals. But for me personally, I've got them at number 4. Next up, I've got the Dallas Mavericks, and there's a reason for that. I think Luka Doncic is going to win the MVP of the league this year. I talked about that in a previous video. And in order for that to happen, most MVPs are top 2 in their conference. I don't see the Mavs going up that high, but I do have them at number 3. As long as Porzingis is healthy and Doncic is healthy, which are, question marks at times for Doncic and a lot of times for Porzingis, I think they're incredibly talented. I love their coaching staff, and I just think that they're going to have the MVP of the league, and they've got some nice pieces around them as well. Having Richardson there to help a little bit more with the defense in comparison to someone like Seth Curry, Maxi Kleber, they've got plenty of options there in Dallas, and I believe in Luka, so I've got them at the 3rd spot. Second to last now, the LA Clippers. Despite all of the issues with the Clippers that we've seen in the past, they're arguably better. You can make an argument that, especially for the postseason, they're a better team this year. Montrezl Harrell is no longer there, but they do have Serge Ibaka. They brought back Marcus Morris on a deal that was enormous, but still, in terms of current day, it definitely helps their group to have him back. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard are healthy. Marcus Morris is there. They've still got a move to make potentially with the Patrick Beverley and Lou Williams contracts. They're one of the best teams in the league still. And even with the disaster that was last year, I still believe in Kawhi. I kind of still believe in Paul George. And I'm not willing to bet against those guys being a top 2 team right now, in my opinion. But the number 1 seed, I don't think it could be anybody else. This is the LA Lakers. They just won the title, and they got better this offseason. They lost some guys like Rajon Rondo, but they brought in Montrezl Harrell. They brought in Marc Gasol. They brought in Dennis Schroeder. And it's going to be a group that, as long as LeBron continues to be LeBron and he stays healthy and AD stays healthy, they're going to be a true threat at the top of this conference for years to come, as long as those 2 guys are still rocking and rolling. And that does not change this year. And they've got some potential 2021 free agency plans as well. So that's my entire standings from top to bottom. For me, if we're looking at potential conference finals predictions, I'm going to go Lakers Clippers again for the conference finals until I see something else from the Mavs or the Nuggets or the Warriors or the Jazz or the Blazers or a team like that. Until I see something real and legitimate for them, I'm going to go with the 2 LA teams because I think the 2 most talented teams in this conference. I would pick right now the Lakers to come out of the West this year, but there certainly could be plenty of surprises. There's a ton of talent, and any type of injury stuff is going to cause teams to slide up or down in the standings, which could really impact how things go in the postseason, assuming that we're playing games at home by the time the playoffs roll around, and home court advantage, especially in Game 7s, is a thing. So with all those things in mind, those are my official predictions for the Western Conference in the NBA for this upcoming season. Those are the standings, and I've got Lakers Clippers in that conference finals with the Lakers advancing and Luka Doncic as the MVP. But that is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Sucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.